Alrighty, next is section 1.3. This is when we start to look at what's the difference between two major types of studies that you can do. One of them is an experimental study, and one of them is observational. Now, in both of these studies, what you're doing is you've got your target, um, the cases that it is that you're interested in doing a study about. You're collecting data from them, whatever those variables are going to be. The main difference is that whenever you're doing something that's known as an observational study, I'll say this also. Observational studies are usually going to be the first type of study that a researcher might consider doing because they're less structured. They're a bit easier to set up, kind of to get going. And the main reason why is that when a researcher does an observational study, they do not control for any of the variables, which is usually going to be the explanatory variable, like the first thing to see whether it's making a difference on the outcome, the response variable. So you kind of let things happen in their natural state. This would be that you go to the individuals, you talk to them. Hey, how much do you eat? How often do you do this? Just on a routine, regular basis, right? You just collect the data from them and and take notes, see what you find out. Now, because of these observational studies being a lot more loose, a lot more free and fluid, just in their natural sort of how things happen, when you come upon your conclusions, those are said with less definitive language. And I'll give you a couple of words that are often used. Use words such as, seem or tend. So, like for example, being an instructor, as I have witnessed students who some do better, some do worse, it seems that whenever students have a more organized binder or they have a organized calendar that they use to kind of manage their routine, they seem or tend to do better. Now it's not anything that I've done like an experiment to see, hey, I'm going to have all of you guys do nice organized binders or this calendar app, and then I'm going to have you all like not do any of that stuff and see who does better. No, it's just something that I've kind of noticed that it seems, right? Not anything that I've tested empirically. It's just if you have an organized binder, it seems you're probably going to be one of the ones that do maybe better in the class. And so by this, we would say that you know being more organized might be associated with doing better in school. They might be related to each other. Now, to give you an example of an observational study, that's this example here. It's a basketball example, where what one of the researchers noticed was that whenever the basketball teams were playing, it was noticed that whenever teams were doing more high fives with each other, that they might have been uh, more often the team that's winning. And so, in that, it was high fives might be leading to winning more. And so the conclusion or statement that might be said about this is still kind of with that tone of, not like super like definitive language. It's like, hey, if your team is doing more high fives, it might pay off in that you win more often. But because of it being only observational, just the thing that was probably like noticed, taking some notes, they wouldn't use something like, hey, if you do more high fives, you will win more often. No, you kind of leave it still to some speculation. And that's because whenever you're doing an observational study, there's lots of other things that could be contributing to the results of the study or the response that's happening at the end of the study. And that's these other variables that are happening are known as confounding variables. Okay. And again, with observational studies, there's a lot of other things that are not being controlled that could be factors or contributing to the space or the atmosphere in which the study is happening. And so a confounding variable is something that is going to influence both the thing that you're interested in seeing whether it matters, and also the thing that's happening as the response. And so I'll give you a bit of a uh, sort of a diagram that you might consider using whenever you're doing the this type of observational study, and you're thinking about the dynamics of other factors that are involved. So in this one, kind of think about what we saw in section 1.1 is that the explanatory would be giving each other high fives, celebrating physically, doing those little physical celebrations. And then now what we're going to do is not say definitively like, hey, high fives, yes, you're going to win more often. It's like, maybe, right? It's going to leading to winning more often. That's the response. And then now that's where I want you just to kind of think, besides giving more high fives, what other things in like the realm of just sports, and this one is specifically basketball, also contribute to why a team is going to be acting differently when it comes to like celebrating, when it comes to them being able to win. What things lead more to those kind of like successful behaviors? And again, there's a lot of things, right? And usually I'll see some students put things like, if you practice more often, sort of like the team morale, uh, might think of things like coach, like who their coach is. And so once you do think of one of these third variables that wasn't mentioned in the study, and that's the key thing. Whenever you're doing your homework, you got to think of something that has not already been mentioned within the prompt. And these are the two that they're going to mention, the explanatory and the response. But once you pick like that third wheel, then what you need to be able to do is explain how, right? It's right here, how, or think, it's either going to be how or think why, and be able to explain, this little arrow that I just did here, right? How does coach, right, depending on who their coach is, influence why they have are going to do more high fives. And so it could be, that a if they have a more high spirited, right, really like optimistic, outgoing, upbeat sort of coach, because of him being sort of like in the space of like them competing. I mean, he just sort of that high spirit that he has might promote more high fives. And then and I'll put like the word and, because now by the definition of a third confounding variable, it also has a separate impact on why they're winning. And so you would also, and you wouldn't just say this is on the homework where you're not just gonna say, if they have a, to keep it so bland is like, depending on their coach, if they have a good coach, they're gonna do more high fives and they're gonna win more. No, like do two separate, as detailed as you can, being more as explicit as you possibly can be, is that, and again, I won't just say because he's a good coach, they're going to win. No, it's going to be something more a little bit, hey, descriptive. So I might say something, and if, right, the coach has great strategies, they might win more often. They might win. Right. And so I'm kind of just interjecting, like, what about the coach? It may be that he's got these great plays or these great designs or strategies for how to set up their defense, but that is what is about the coach that's going to lead to them being more successful as a team. And so again, that's the contributing factor to why they're doing more high fives and also why they're doing maybe more winning. So again, we'll do another one in an example, but again, because these confounding variables are sort of uh, things could be a bit more messy whenever you're doing observational studies. You don't say things like this first thing will impact the second one, which is going to lead us to just a little conclusion here. You cannot do cause and effect type conclusions or statements whenever you're doing just observational stuff. So if you do want to be able to sort of like up the strength of your conclusions whenever you're doing a study, then that would need to be that you do something that's an experiment. So in an experiment, what a researcher is going to do is actually going to do a bit more work when it comes to trying to control what's happening while the study is taking place. And so another really good word is that they're going to manipulate one or more of the variables. Now, in this one, it's that they're going to be manipulating the thing that the initial variable that they're seeing, whether it matters, whether it has an impact on the outcome or the response for the participants. Now, if you do a well designed, and we'll talk about some of the what does it mean for it to be well designed, then you can say conclusions with more certainty, such as using the word like, if you do this, this other thing will happen, which is now getting into that tone of not just things maybe being related to each other, but there being a cause and effect. So we're going to say they're not, the two variables are not just associated with each other, but they're causally associated. All right. Getting into the whole idea of like cause and effect, things said with more certainty. And what we're going to be looking at is like, what do we mean whenever things are a well designed experiment? And again, in the section 1.2, we talked about, things being randomly done, being sort of like the word of all words in this chapter one. And so, yeah, if you have your participants and you randomly make two groups, by doing it randomly splitting it up, that's going to help you achieve a better mixture of sort of like people in group one, people in group two, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. There's other types of designs of study out there, but we're going to be doing more of these the comparative study. Is there a difference between what's happening in group A versus group B? And the two groups are known as the treatment group and the control group. And so when you think about these two different groups, the treatment group is the one who's getting like the special something. I want to see, whether students who do this, right, are going to maybe be more successful in the class. Maybe there's some special like app, for to help them study, that you just designed. You're going to have them do that, and then the other group, they're just going to do whatever they regularly do. But if it's something like a medical study where they're going to be ingesting something, then the other group, you still need to give them something, and it's usually that's like a placebo, and that's what they did here in this example that I have for you of a randomized comparative experiment. So in this study, the target was men, and so you can see here that they had 60 men who were recruited for the study. And I know last time in the section 1.2 we talked about, random samples being the best type of samples rather than just voluntary based studies, which could be more biased. But I do want you to understand that anytime that somebody is being asked to participate in a study, we are all like if we were randomly selected, you or I were randomly selected to be invited to join into a study. Those are good because that's them trying to make an unbiased sample. But know that we are all going to some degree be always be considered like volunteers because we could still say no, right? And there were studies back in the day that were done with prisoners, and they were not randomly selected. They were like forced to be into the studies, and so like horrible stuff. But now, good news is we have structure, we have protocols in place that if someone's going to do study with human participants, that there has to be a lot of protocols and things that are checked and make sure that people are aware of what they're getting involved in. So yeah, the 60 minute of this study were volunteers, and that at any time they could have said, no, I don't want to be part of the study anymore, or I don't want to be part of the study at all. But just a little side note there. So the 60 men were recruited for the study, and it was to test to see whether, here it is, green tea has an impact makes a difference when it comes to getting prostate cancer. So you got your explanatory and you got your response variable here. And so here's what they did. Here's that word of all words. They randomly split them up into two groups, 30 versus 30. And then here's the control. Some received the green tea and the other half a placebo. Now, again, in this study, as you're splitting them up, you would want to give both groups something. The first group, for sure, the green tea, they're going to be the special group. But the other group, you need to give them something because they would have known that this study was going to be about green tea and whether you get prostate cancer or not. And so if they realize, right, that they're not getting the special something, then most likely you're going to have a lot of people quit the study. So it would be sort of like hey, some of you are going to be randomly given the green tea, some are not. And so you would still give them the placebo just so they can at least still go through like the works of so like the workings of the study. And if not, if you don't give them anything, they're most likely going to drop and quit the study. So you give them placebo. And then for this one, I think it was for a year. There it is right there for 1 year. And then here were the results, right? 1 out of 30 got cancer who were in the green tea, and 9 out of 30 got cancer that were just in the placebo group, right? So it was a treatment versus control group. And you can see that there was a difference, right? I mean, if you want to just calculate the percentages, 1 divided by 30, 9 divided by 30, you'll see that it was much higher for the control group, the placebo group. And so what I want you to take away from here is that this is considered an example of an observational study, excuse me, an experiment. And when you get to the homework, it's ever asked, why was it observational? Why was it experimental? You would say observational since they controlled. I'm going to just go to double underline. This is the main reason why it is an experiment. They controlled who got green tea. And so if this is a question on the homework where it ends up being that they didn't do any control, you would say, oh, that was an observation because they didn't control any variables. But in this one, they did. It's an experiment. And then the quick answer here is going to be yes. Can we conclude that green tea will? So this is doing the cause effect type language. Can they say with more certainty and more definitive, like, hey, if you drink green tea, you will have a reduced chance of getting prostate cancer? And it'll be yes, because since it was a randomized experiment. So I'll take, in the homework, I'll take if you say, yes, they can do cause and effect, or yes, they can say strong language will because it was an experiment. But the bigger thing about this one is that it was randomized, right? They didn't let the 60 men choose, like, which group would you like to go in? Because if they did it that way, that I could imagine these 60 men kind of looking at each other and like the younger guys getting together and like the older guys probably huddling together. And so now if you let that happen, now you got younger versus older. And so it's biased groups, right? Where age might be a factor. By doing it randomly, you're mixing it up. You're letting there be a better chance that you're going to get kind of a good mixture of younger in both groups. older in both groups, and people with different diets in both groups, uh, people who, right, are maybe more athletic versus those who are not, like a good mixture. And so that's why this study had so much power to it, is because of it being unbiased. Again, they didn't like cherry pick who's going to be in what group. They just, boom, hey, we're randomly going to split you guys up so that there is more of a variety in the two groups. And what that does is finally give us a chance to reduce sort of the effects of confounding variables, which one of them would have been age. But since they were all nicely randomly distributed, you got 30 very different mixed up guys versus another 30 mixed up group of guys. Now, when you are asked to do a project for this class, you're going to be doing 30 individuals for your project. It does not need to be a randomized experiment. It is perfectly okay just for the sake of the class. You know, it goes by really, really fast. And I know a lot of you are taking other classes so that, you know, when you do their project, it could be a convenient sample. Doesn't, and it can be observational, right? It doesn't have to be that you set up, you know, hey, I'm gonna have 15 of you get the special treatment and you other 15 are just gonna do your regular thing. No, that's okay. Now, a quick little quiz here, and I do this because there's gonna be a homework example that asks you to read a statement that would be the conclusion of a study. Might have been observational, might have been experimental, but whether the language that they're using seems to be sort of like the softer, hey, these two things maybe are related to each other, which is just an association, or are they doing a more aggressive language, like, hey, if you do this, then this other thing will happen, the more cause and effect, causal association. So it's either going to rewrite just association or we're going to write causal association. So really just like a multiple choice. And so read A, B, and C kind of for yourself, maybe even pause the video and kind of vote which of these do you think falls into sounding like causal association, stronger language, or which one is sort of like just association, maybe. And while you do that, I'm going to fill up a little bit more water. And again, since it's really just me here recording myself, I'm kind of also just allowing you on your side as you're watching this to be able to record, be able to give me pause, try these out, and then we get going again. So let's go ahead and do this. Again, the first one has that stronger language of if you study more, you will improve. So this one being, it sounds like they're being more definitive, more bold. So it's they got more of the cause and effect language. So this would be causal association. I'm going to skip to the third one. This one has the softer language. You know, aging of the brain tends. It's like maybe might be delayed in people with a college education. So that's going to be just association. Now, the second one is the one that students usually are like, they didn't really say will, they didn't say maybe or tends, but this one is meant to be more like like they're trying to sell you something, like that you would see at the top of a product or like an infomercial, like, hey, you know, you want to lose weight, drink more tea, right? So this one is causal association. It's got that exclamation mark there where they're trying to umph their claim. So that would be sort of still fall into that would fall into like, you know, if you want to lose weight, then or if you drink tea, you will lose weight. Right. And then Oh, and then I just want to make a little just heads up on this one. It should be that when researchers do observational studies, that they only do just association conclusions, the softer conclusions, and that if they've done an experiment well designed, that they can make stronger conclusions. These two things will be or are related to each other, but that doesn't mean that that always perfectly works out. There are times where there's some researchers who actually do things the way they're not supposed to. And so you might see one day where you run into an article that was just observational, but it sounds like they're using too aggressive a language, like, oh, hey, we found out that people, who spend more time on social media, will do worse in school. But it was only observational, so they shouldn't be using the strong language. So just heads up, this might show up on a test one day, that it's observational, but they're still using cause and effect language. Not appropriate, but sometimes that happens. The other one that I have here is just a quick quiz. Again, this is one where you can pause me, try it for yourself. Again, I'm just going to be quiet for about 10 seconds, but all I want you to do is just read the prompt and find what's the explanatory response. Then right here, 1,001 different answers that you could give as a third variable that might be influencing why the first thing is happening, why the second thing is happening. And then down here you would explain why the first thing is happening, and you would write a second why the confounding variable is influencing the second variable, which is the response. I think that's all that I've got as far as like getting set up there. But be very descriptive with these, how, why is whatever you decide influencing the first thing. How, why is it influencing the response? So again, I'm going to be quiet for about 10 more seconds. Again, you can pause the video and then we'll go from there. All right, here we go. So if you read through this prompt, the thing that you're going to recognize is that they discovered that if they eat with, oh, I just lost my, I don't think here, let me bring it right back. It was that if they find that the teenagers are eating with their family, there we go, right back, right here. Yeah, if they're eating with family, that would be the explanatory. Eating with family, that they might that might be contributing to them getting better grades. Now, as far as whether this was observational or just experimental, this was an observational study. And again, they're not asking us to explain, but if on the homework or maybe tests, quiz that are coming up down the road, you're asked to explain why, you would just put something really short about the control or the lack of, did not control any variables. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just spoil the part D. Can they use this study to claim that teens who eat more with families will cause their grades to go up? No, can't do cause and effect. And again, if asked to explain why, you could say it was no, only observational. But now let's get to the big thing that I was kind of curious about here is what was a confounding variable, something that could have been a reason why they were eating more with the family, and separately a reason why they might have been getting better grades. Lot of stuff that could have been said here. There's if they have a certain schedule, a certain routine, parenting style, sort of like the culture of the family, a lot of things that you could go with. And one that I want to at least kind of give you that I had thought about. And again, if you've got something different, that is okay. It just needs to be something that wasn't already mentioned in the study. And you got to just kind of think outside the box and be like, oh, okay, maybe the parenting style. And now we need to do our two separate, right? That go back to how, why would parenting style matter and contribute to eating more with the family? And so I just wrote something that said, parents might insist they eat together as part of a routine. And maybe that's even for you, the confounding variable you had, if they have a specific routine that they follow every day, they're like, hey, let's not break routine. We're always going to get together and eat, right? It's sort of like an in place structure of the family. And then separately, another reason why the parenting style might matter in this context is because why? How does that matter to getting better grades? We could say, and parents might offer tutoring or help with homework, right? That might be another thing that they're just involved more on the academics, right? And so again, it kind of goes back to the whole idea of just not being so busy, right? I mean, if they have more time in their day to be able to do these things, um, yeah. So again, there's lots of other things that could have been um, put in there as far as your third confounding variable, but make sure when you do it that you do nice, descriptive reasons why arrow, and again, make sure your arrow goes this direction, right? That might lead to this, and then make sure your explanation goes in this direction, right? That might lead to more of the response. And again, when I grade the homeworks, I will give you feedback. And you have the answer key to be able to check to make sure that your answers are accurate, but then also you want to be more descriptive with these these more open response type questions where you're kind of just being creative and thinking in your real world, what are the things that you notice or know that might be influencing each other. And if they need to be more detailed when I grade your homework, I will give you that feedback so that you can make those adjustments before you get to the test and know, okay, he needed me to give a little bit more. Now this one here, before we finish up this lecture, is an example of where you just want to make sure that you're including so like the key elements to if we wanted to do a randomized comparative experiment. So think of this sort of as three like check boxes that we want to be able to hit all three of these. And when we say randomize, we mean that we're splitting our participants into two groups, just like they did with the 30 men, the 60 men. They split them into 30 and 30, but they randomly did it. Comparative is that one group is going to have something different than the other group, and then experiment is the control, right? Like we're manipulating, we're telling these individuals, here's what we want you to do, and these are what we want you to do. And then going back to the comparative is like after a certain time period, we're going to test and see whether there's a difference between group A and group B. Now, in this scenario, it's that what if we had 40 people who were randomly selected, and now that random is not the same. These two randoms are two different randoms. The top random is how they were selected, and then the second random is how they're being split. So when we're doing this, it's also to see whether vitamin B, right, whether vitamin B um, helps memory. right? So he's going to put up here, I just do a little vitamin B, whether it impacts memory. So let's just do sort of a bullet point 1, 2, and 3, because we've got 3 boxes that we need to check off. And so the first one that you would do here is that first randomness. We can randomly, step number 1, we're going to randomly split 2 groups of 20. Like 20 people, but we're not going to let them choose which group they want to be in. We're gonna randomly put it up so we get a good mixture of people in group A and group B. Then the second thing we're gonna do is now start the control. Who's gonna get what? Who's not gonna get what? Now, what it is it that we're trying to see whether it ends up making a difference is the explanatory, which is going to be the vitamin B, right? So not everybody's gonna get vitamin B. That's the thing that we want to see whether it makes a difference. So group, we're going to give group 1 vitamin B, and group 2, we're not going to give them vitamin B. Again, we're trying to control to see whether that ends up making a difference for group 1. And so, because this is a study where they're ingesting something, group 2 needs to get something to be ingested as well. That way, they still kind of go through the same behavior as the group 1. Because sometimes even just getting a placebo can make people at least mentally think that they're getting some sort of benefit. So we'll do group 2 uh, gets placebo. But just know not every study has to have a placebo where they're like ingesting something like a sugar pill. If we were doing to see whether like a pair of shoes help athletes maybe have better running performance, then we would give group 1 the special pair of shoes, and then the other group we would have them just use whatever their regular shoes that they're already using. So again, it's not always that you have to have the placebo. Placebo comes in whenever it's like when they're ingesting something. And then what we would do is just kind of look, what have we accomplished? We've done the randomness because we randomly split them. So this is important. You got to make sure that you say that they're not just being split choosing however they want. You got to make sure that it's that you're saying I'm going to randomly split them. And then we have already done the experiment part because we're controlling who's going to get the vitamin B versus who's not. And then we're going to do the comparative part, right? What's going to be compared is now the memory. So after 1 month, they've got it listed here 1 month. After after 1 month test and compare memories. And so that's it, right? Again, it's got all the boxes checked off. It's got that it's going to be randomly done. We've got, our 2 different groups, who's getting what. This is taking care of the control and the experiment. And then we've also got what is being compared at the end of the study. All right. So again, this is just to set you up with the one of the homework problems that you're going to see, also things that you're going to see later down, like in the quiz and the test. But these you want to be as specific about, sort of like the step 1, step 2, step 3. Then you don't have to have all the other stuff. Like, well, how are we going to test their memories? Like, is it going to be like some sort of game, or is it going to be some sort of like puzzle? Those are the details you can leave out. These are the details that you cannot leave out. All right. Now, last thing that we're going to do with this lecture is talk about matched pairs. So now, if suppose me and you were recruited to this last study with the vitamin B, and then whenever it was all said and done, we found out that we were in the placebo group, we'd probably be a little bummed out, like, oh man, I would have liked to have been in the vitamin B group. But what if they had done it this way? What if they had done it to where they did 2 months, right? Where month one, um, half of the participants are going to do the vitamin B and half are not. But then month two, everybody's going to switch, right? And you randomly decided who was going to get vitamin B first, and then who was going to go the second round without it, and then vice versa. We'd probably feel a lot better about that. It's like, oh yes, at least I got 1 month where I got to try it and 1 month where I didn't. But at least at some point I got to try it. That's a matched pairs. Matched pairs is when every participant is going to have either first or second an opportunity to go with and without the special treatment. And so, what I want you to do here is, as opposed to just the comparative, where group A is going to get it and group B, sorry, never going to get the special thing. So, down here, I want you to look and see which one you can identify, A or B, as being the randomized comparative experiment, and which one is the matched pairs experiment. Again, which one seems to be more like, it's just group A is getting the special stuff, B's not, or which one is where everyone's going to get a chance to try the special something with and then without it. Again, feel free to pause the video if you need, just to make sure that you have enough time to kind of think for yourself through this one. Again, I'm just going to go about 5 more seconds, but again, pause if you need to. All right, so this would have been the first one. Everybody got once with the wetsuit and once without. And then they would have like randomly decided who went first with the wetsuit and then who went without it. So some would have done it with first and then second without it, and some would have gone without it first and then with it second. But this is the match pairs because everybody at some point got the treatment for this be now it's still an experiment, match pairs experiment, and because of the randomness, could be used to claim like cause and effect, stronger conclusions. And then this one here was only the comparative, but still randomized, still an experiment because they were controlling, who was going to be in the group that got the regular exercise program and the other half who made no changes. So there was definitely just a group A versus a group B. So that'd be just a comparative study. But both experiments, both randomized, and I'll go ahead and end the recording there. Again, as you move on to working with your homework, right? You're going to want to rely back and reference these lecture notes as needed. Whenever you get to problems, be like, okay, this is the level of detail that I need to have included. These are the elements that need to be make sure that I have in my responses. This is how descriptive that I need to be. And definitely 1.3 is a lot more being descriptive and explaining a lot more as opposed to like section 1.1 where sometimes it was just like one word or two words. So but again, hope this helps. Take care.